So once again, really appreciate your interest in what we're building and really excited to show you around. My plan for today is to talk to you a little bit about, very briefly, about the kind of the theory behind Argutopia, and then very quickly to get you onto the site, show you around. I'll conclude by inviting you to join us for the beta testing group and to create your own account on Argutopia that you are welcome to use. We're looking for people who are willing to try this out and to actually put it to use in the way that we hope it ultimately gets put to use. So you'll have the chance to do that toward the end. By way of review, recall that Argutopia is built around this model of debate that's been in development for some time. Effectively, the model ends up appearing as a playing board or a scorecard of a debate that communicates what occurs in a debate. So you can see the background is the general territory of whatever controversy we're addressing. The darker gray rectangles within there suggest that there are issues that are points of clash that divide that broad territory into sub-controversies. And the arrows indicate the efforts of the debaters to make arguments that move that dividing line left or right, depending upon the arguments they make, or to expand or contract the issues in terms of their importance that they're communicating to the judge. We've got these two axes. Along the bottom is the axis of preference. It suggests as the line moves back and forth, the judge is expressing a preference for one side or the other. We've got the axis of significance running in the vertical position there, suggesting that as one argument, one issue grows in significance, the others retreat. So if I were planning, for example, to have a debate on tobacco products and why they should be banned, I might expect the debaters or assign the debaters to interrogate these sub-issues. Does tobacco use pose a public health risk? Will it cause an economic hardship? Will it violate tobacco users' rights? And that would direct the debaters as to where to orient their arguments and where to expect arguments from the other side. As the debate unfolds and the debaters make their arguments, if we could use or imagine the debate playing out on this playing field or this playing board, by the end of the debate, based upon the arguments they've made, that allocation of territory might look something more like this, where the arguments made by the pro side have clearly won in the first issue, and the pro side has argued that that issue is more significant than other issues. The entire thought behind this model is that concretizing the very abstract moves that can be made in the debate helps students to understand what it is they're supposed to do when exchanging arguments and gives them a more structured scaffold within which to work when they're exchanging these arguments. So we've built Argutopia to make this model accessible to students, to instructors, as well as to judges when they are viewing debates, so that they can better understand what it is they are going to be doing. One other thing that I'll talk about with regard to theory before I show you what the site looks like and how the tool works. The Argutopia site imagines, the platform imagines that you could use the platform in kind of three different phases when using debates in your classroom. Before the debate begins, you could provide the student debaters the model that would help them understand what arguments they're supposed to make in the debate and what arguments they can anticipate their opposition making, helping them prepare for and develop responses to arguments that they anticipate from the other side, gives them that sort of blueprint for how the debate is going to work. During the debate, the model can be used by audience members to record the arguments that they're hearing the debaters exchange. So they too, because they share this sort of common vision of what the debate is going to look like, they too have a scaffold for where their attention should be located, what arguments they should expect, what issues are being contested, and where the debaters are focusing their efforts. And finally, after the debate, the model can be used by those who might deliberate about a decision to illustrate the decision that they've made by adjusting those areas within the model appropriately to suggest their preference for pro and con within issues or their perception of the significance of issues relative to other issues. A prospective adjudicator could use that model to illustrate the decision they've made and, more importantly, to engage in a discussion or a deliberation with other adjudicators, with other judges, other students who might be assigned to judge the round, to make clear what their position is and to come to some consensus about a common allocation of a model based upon the group members, the deliberation group members' differing perceptions. That's the basic theory and background of what it is we're building. What I'd like to do now is show you what the site looks like. What you're looking at is kind of the landing page that you'll see when you first log on to Argutopia. What I've done already is to build a couple of classes for this demonstration that I've labeled Debate 101 and Debate 102. If you're landing here for the first site, or for the first time, the very first thing you'd want to do is create a class. And you may name the class whatever you'd like. If it's your debate class, you're welcome to call it, obviously, your debate class. If it's a civics class or a government class or math or biology or what have you, the class name is entirely up to you and should correspond with what you believe the class would be most identifiable to the students. We also ask for a start and end date. This gives us just the ability to manage that information relative to your semester and helps us orient some other things there as well. Once you've created a class, the next thing you'll be asked to do is to actually upload a roster for that class. And you can do this in a couple of different ways. You need to add students to your class to make sure that the class is populated with those people who are going to use it. So you can add students either by putting their email addresses in separately, or you can upload an XLS or a CSV file. Most content management systems allow you to download lists of your students or rosters for your course, and we give you here a couple of different templates that you can use to make sure that your data is in the proper format for uploading into our site. Once you've done that though, and you can see that I've added a number of students to this class, then you've got your class set up. These students will be able to access Argutopia by simply directing their browsers to argutopia.co, logging on. They'll get an email sent to them, and once they confirm that email, then they'll be taken right into your class, and the only thing they'll be able to see are the assignments that you have for them. But this is the main site, or the main page that you'll see when you first arrive and create a class, is the assignments page. So here's where you manage all of the assignments that you might be creating for your classes. Now, most assignments are going to be debates, but we also anticipate that Argutopia might be used for things other than debates, so we've chosen the more generic term assignment. But here's where you'll build out the debates and make the assignments to the students that you might want to make. One of the things you can do to start is by taking a look at the debate kits that we've already pre-built into the system. And so the debate kits are just combinations of topics and issue statements and resources in many cases that automatically populate that model for you. So you can choose amongst those options. You can do searches for terms that might be interesting for you. For example, you might want to look at all of the kits that contain the word Biden to see what debates are available for President Biden. Or maybe you're doing a debate on environment and you want to see what's available for that. You can look at all of the different kits that we have available for that as well. Many of these, about 2/3 of the approximately 100 debate kits that we have available in here, also have resources available. And in the vast majority of cases, these link to a number of popular free sites like procon.org or New York Times Debatable that gives the students a starting point for doing their research or understanding the issue that they might be debating. We're going to eventually include the option for instructors who create their own debate kits specific to their course content to upload those and make them shareable as well. So you'll be able to build out your own debate kits. You certainly can already. You can put your own topic and issues into the debate assignment. But what we're building next is a social dimension to that. So when you build out that debate kit and you populate it with resources that you want to share with your students, you'll also be given the option to share that with other users of the site who might want to adopt your assignment, develop it for their own purposes, contribute to it, and add additional resources and material to it for their own use as well. For now though, we're going to start with just creating a general assignment without choosing a topic first. There'll be a step later down the road where we can choose what topic we're going to use. So now I'm into creating an assignment for my class. The very first thing I'm going to want to do is let the program know when we want the assignment to start. So we're going to say this assignment is going to start today. And then you'll be given a variety of options for how students can debate. At present, we are only offering the option of asynchronous threaded video debates, which means that you can do a debate, but the students actually complete their speeches outside of class. I'll show you more about how that works in just a minute. But eventually we're also going to build in the ability to do real-time in-person debates, so you could create an assignment where the students are intended to debate live and in class, And we're going to build out a component where you can do real-time virtual debates so that your students could use the platform to debate in real time via video conferencing. And eventually we'll have the ability for you to connect with other classes and other schools around the nation or around the world to host live debates on here as well. But for now, for this version of the program, we're limited just to synchronous video, so we're going to select that one and move on to our next step. Now here's where you can put in your own topic and issues for the debate if you want. And so I could write my own topic if I would like, but I also again have access to this debate kits utility that allows me to choose which debate I'm going to use. So let's say I want to do a debate about whether or not DC and Puerto Rico should be granted statehood. And I know that there's a resource attached to this, so that one's going to work for me. So I'm going to choose that kit, and it'll automatically populate the topics and the issues here for me, so I know they're ready to go. Now, if I don't like the wording of an issue, or if I want to add an additional issue to the pre-developed debate kit, you can always do that. You can also get rid of issues if you would prefer not to have that issue in there. But all of that editing is available to you before you start to move on in the assignment creation process. So if I'm happy with the debate kit, I'm happy with my topic and issues, I move on to the next step. And here's where I decide whether or not I'm going to have students judge the debate in addition to participating in the debate. So in most cases, I've found as a debate instructor that a lot of the utility of a debate assignment comes not just for the people who are doing the debating, but for the students who are watching as well. So I have in the vast majority of debates that I do in my classes, I always assign responsibility for students to judge. So I'm certainly going to have the students judge in this case as well. And then I've got the option of either having the students just write individual decisions or create individual decisions for the debate that they watched, or I can have them deliberate in small groups. This too is another one of my favorite approaches to any debate assignment. Usually I'll have the students complete an individual ballot first, and then once the students have done that, I'll put them into groups of 3 to 5 people that will deliberate about a common decision that they have for the debate, making arguments and exchanging perspectives on which side they think won, in an effort to get that that metacognition going, where they're really talking about how they're thinking about the debate. And I find that to be a very useful exercise for getting the students really engaged in the material. So I'm going to choose that the students are going to deliberate in groups for this one, which means that they will submit an individual decision first, and then they'll deliberate with a small group to reach consensus on that collective decision. Now I'm on to the second part of our configuration routine. Here I'm going to select the formats and due dates. Now remember, we're doing these asynchronous threaded videos. So students are going to be recording them over the course of several days. That means that we're pretty limited in the kind of format that we can use. I don't have a lot of options for having students do cross-examination between speeches. Mostly what I'm going to end up doing is having a series of speeches alternating in pro and con fashion. So the options for formats are going to be pretty limited for threaded video. When we get the live debates up and running, there'll be a lot more different options that you can use for formats, but for now we keep it simple. Let's say I'm going to want a 2 versus 2 debate, and I've got the option then to see when these speeches are going to be due. So remember that we want to give a certain amount of time for each speaker to do their speech, but I'm going to use just the auto schedule feature. I can put in each of the speech links that I would like to put in here if I would like and select the particular due dates. But I also put in an assignment start date when I first started creating the assignment. And so if I just click auto schedule right here, it'll automatically populate these due dates with a 24-hour cadence on each of the students' speeches. So you'll see this assignment starts today on the 20th, the first speech is due tomorrow at midnight, the second speech, which would be the first con speech, is due 24 hours after that, and then it keeps alternating until each student has had a 24-hour period to view the previous speech from one of their debaters and to record their own speech in that time as well. I also have the option of changing the due dates for the assignments down here. I can set the individual decisions and the date I want those turned in, and then I can schedule the date for the group decision as well. Once I'm satisfied with all of that, I move on to the next phase. So now I've got a debate set up and I know what my whole assignment is going to look like. The assignment starts on the 20th, the first pro speech is due on the 21st, the first con speech on the 22nd, and so on through my individual decisions and group decisions. The next thing I have to do then is to give each student a role in the debate. I've got a class full of students. I've got to get them sorted into pro-debaters and con-debaters. I've got to give them responsibilities as judges in small group settings so that they'll be able to judge a debate that they're not participating in. It's a lot to manage, but we make it pretty simple by the auto-create feature right here, which gives you the option of selecting which students you want to participate in your debate. So these are all of the students that I have rostered for this class, and I'm going to choose to make them all debate. So I have 28 students involved in this debate. I'll add them all to the list of students who are going to be scheduled. I also have the ability to choose which students are going to decide the winner of each debate. In other words, which students are going to judge. And you'll note here that we default to an assumption that students will judge one debate. So I want to make sure that all 28 of those students also have a responsibility for judging each of the debates, or one of the debates that's going to occur. So I've added all my students to be debaters. I've added all my students to be judges. I then click Create Debates, and it auto-populates all of my debates for me. So I know I'm going to have 2 students on the pro and 2 students on the con in each of the debates. That should mean that I should have 7 debates created, and in fact I do. It should also mean that I should have a judging panel for each debate that involves students who aren't currently participating in that debate. So here we've got Callum, Kirk, and Waleed who are serving as judges, and obviously none of them would be participating in this debate. Now, if as I'm looking through this, I decide that there's debates that I'm unhappy with, say I don't want Jack to be a pro-debater, I prefer that Kirk do so, I can just drag and drop, move these people's schedules around so that I can switch out those positions, and that'll adjust their roles accordingly. It also, as you can see, defaults to an odd number of students on the judging panels. So some panels have just 3 students in their deliberation group. Some panels have 5 students in their deliberation group. If I prefer that we just have the same number of people in every panel, I can just move people between those as well, dragging Haim up here and making sure that each of those then have 4 judges on the panel. Once I'm happy and have moved everybody around and I've got everybody where I want them to be, I then move on to a confirmation screen, and this just allows me to see all of the details. I know when the assignment's going to start. It's going to be an asynchronous debate. I've got the topic and issues here. I've got the decision due dates right down here, and below there then I have the speaking orders for each of these students. So here I've got the first pro speech, the first con speech, second pro and second con speech for debate number 1. I can see my judges down here. If I decide that I want to switch Aja's and Aislin's speaking orders, I can just drag and drop them to make sure that Aslin's speaking first and that Aislin's going to be speaking second, and it automatically maintains that pro-con order as I move people around here, but I have that ability to switch student orders around there as well. Once I've reviewed all of the debates and I'm happy with everything, I can just click Create Assignment. And there, my Washington and Puerto Rico statehood debate shows up. So now from inside here, I've got the ability to see all of the debates that are happening. So 7 different debates occurring. Each one of these can be seen by me here. And importantly, I can take a look at all of the work that the students have been doing, whether they've submitted their videos yet, whether they've created their models as judges. All of that is available to me at this point. So here's the perspective from the students. When they arrive on the site, they're going to see much of what you saw. So as a student, in the student role that I'm enrolled in both classes, the 201 and the 101 class. But I'm going to go look for this debate that I was scheduled into. So I'm scheduled into both of these debates. In one of them, I could be either a judge or a debater. In the other one, I'm going to be primarily serving as a debater. So this is a debate about whether or not the voting age should be lowered to 16. And I'm serving as a debater in this one. I know that because I can scroll over here and see the members of my debate, the pro members, the con members, and the judges. And I can get information about the assignment to know what my role is, what the instructions for the assignment are, when due dates are happening, and that sort of thing. I can also then use the model to start planning out my speech. So I can add arguments here if I'm interested in. I can add the claim here. I can add reasoning and evidence down here. And I can use that to plan the arguments that I'm going to make when I engage in the debate. I can also, of course, add con-arguments that I anticipate them making. Or if I'm watching the debate, I can add the arguments that the con side is making to prepare for the speech that I'm ultimately going to give. Up here you can toggle between the graphic model view, or eventually you'll be able to see all of the arguments that you've recorded in a text view for the model, and that will give the debater essentially the ability to download all of those arguments into an outline form and use that if they'd like to speak from that outline. But most importantly, I can see when I'm scheduled to speak. So if I'm debater CC, I know that my partner has already spoken once, the first con speaker has already spoken once, and now it's my turn to record my speech. So the first thing I'll probably want to do is to go back and watch the previous speeches that have been recorded. And I can pull those up, review those speeches. Now, these are ones that I recorded a while ago. So I can watch the rest of those, switching back and forth between each of the speeches to see what my partner said, what the con speaker said in response to my partner, making notes of those arguments as the arguments are being made on the videos by the debaters, and always including that information on the model. When I'm done watching then, and it's time for me to record my own speech, I just go to the schedule, I click record, I get some options. I can record the camera and the screen, or I can record just the screen or just the camera, and at that point I can start recording. Once I'm ready, I can record up to a 5-minute video to include in the order of speeches that's being recorded. Once that's done, it's then made available to everybody else in the debate as well. Alright, so now I'm back in as a student judge. I'm going to join my debate class, and I know that I'm supposed to be judging the voting age lowered to 16 debate. So I can open that debate up, and that takes me into my judging model. Now you can see that I've already populated this with a number of different arguments. And these arguments are arguments that I have listened to the debaters make when I was watching them on their speeches that they have recorded. So now the debate is entirely done. Imagine that C and E have had a chance to record their speeches as well. I can go back and watch the entire debate as a judge and record the arguments as I'm listening to the speakers give their speeches. And so all of these arguments that are in blue on the pro side of the model are probably arguments that the first pro speaker made. These arguments in pink on the con side are arguments that the con speaker made throughout each of these different speeches that I've been watching here. Once I'm done recording all of these arguments, and again I can put in the claim to the arguments as well as the reasoning and evidence that might have been offered during the speech that was being it was arguing in favor or against the motion. Once I'm done with that, then I can start participating in the deliberation. So I'm assigned to this 3-person deliberation group. I've submitted my individual model. The other 2 members of my group have submitted their model as well. So now I can have the chance to look at their models and compare their models to what mine looked like. So I can switch back to student Y's model. I can take a look at student Z's model and see what they look like. Or if I want to look at them kind of comparatively, I can hit this little icon here, and it'll show 3 different models and how each of us saw these differently. Now, ignore for the moment the fact that all 3 of these students are named Steve Johnson. That's just picking it up because I'm switching perspectives, and it's keeping my name on each of those models. Each of these would be labeled with the appropriate student's name when you're using students to do this. But I can see here the difference between the model that I created and the model that my other members of my deliberation panel created, so that we can have some discussion about who allocated the models and which way they did it, and why they made those decisions to allocate the model accordingly. I can also get an average model, which just takes all 3 of our models and combines them together to provide an average representation of what our allocation of the model looked like. And that too can be useful for having the students discuss the differences and similarities between their models. Again, during all of this process, you're working toward creating this consensus model. So this is a model that is shared between all 3 group members that they can each edit and make contributions to. And once all three of these group members are happy, they would each independently hit submit to confirm that they like the representation of the model, and then that model would be sent on to the instructor for their evaluation. They can add arguments to it, they can adjust and allocate the different areas within the model accordingly, and essentially have that discussion that really promotes that metacognition about why they're making the decision that they're making. So the last thing I'll show you is what all of this then looks like from the instructor's perspective with regard to a completed or nearly completed assignment. So let's assume that we're back into this voting age debate. I only had one debate running for this. It was between these 4 debaters and these 3 students. So from this main dashboard, I can take a look at each of the students' speeches that have been recorded, and I can review their contributions. I can look at their preparation model. Oh, actually that one hasn't been submitted yet, but I can look at their preparation model when those have been submitted. And then once the debate is done, I can then go back and look at each individual's model based upon their perceptions of the debate. I can check their arguments and what they wrote down, how they captured the different arguments that were being made in the speech, and effectively take a bird's eye view of everything that was going on in that assignment from one location within the entire platform. So that is a very fast 30-minute introduction to how Argutopia works and what we do. If you would like to get onto Argutopia and play around with it, to roster your own class, to create your own assignments and make them available for students, you are all more than welcome to create instructor accounts. What you'd need to do is just send me an email at steve@argutopia.co, and I'd emphasize that it's CO for company, not COM for commercial. It's argutopia.co. Send me an email, tell me what you're doing, what level you're teaching, what you plan to use Argutopia for, and we will get an instructor's account created for you so that you have access to get in there, play around with things, and let us know what works and what doesn't. Again, I want to emphasize this is a beta version of this platform. There might be bugs. We think we've worked out most of them. Part of what we're hoping to get from you in trying it out is reports on things that aren't working, or things that aren't clear, or features that you would like to see included for the future, so that we can make this platform even more useful for you.